as the Prime Minister said a week or so ago, he doesn't take his medical advice from Craig Kelly, and nor do I. The medical authorities in Australia over the past year and a bit have performed very, very well. Very, very good advice at all levels of government, and that's one of the reasons why we are in the position, the very fortunate position we are in. One of the reasons, as I understand it, why we're seeing these incidents in relation to AstraZeneca is that the pace of the clinical trials, not the pace in the sense of them being hasty, but because the take-up, that is, of people who could be tested was so rapid, a matter of months rather than years. That is why we are now seeing these very, very rare incidents of side effects. Now, they are not numerous in relation to the administration of the AstraZeneca vaccine, but simply a consequence of the fact that there have been so many tests done, clinical trials done so rapidly, and the number of people who were tested in those clinical trials was very, very significantly greater than would have been the case in the introduction of a number of other new medicines, and that's why we're seeing what we're doing. But the general point is this: our health authorities have been meticulous. They have done well. We are very fortunate to be in a situation that we are in by comparison with a number of other comparable countries, and I will be taking my advice from our health authorities, not from Craig Kelly nor from Matt Canavan.
Yeah, you'd think that we'd hear a pretty strong statement from the Prime Minister on this afternoon. It would probably be helpful to get Brendan Murphy and or Paul Kelly out as well to really lay that out and explain to the Australian public their thinking around that. Just looking at the events yesterday, well, we've seen all around the country those marches for women. We've heard about Tony Abbott's so-called women problem for many years. Is Scott Morrison heading the same way?
Yes, I think he is, and I think the data is suggesting that. But boy, aren't the senior women members of the coalition carrying a lot of water for the Prime Minister at the moment, whether it be Marise Payne or Jane Hume or the others. They are struggling. They are struggling to find ways through the misstatements and the reactive nature of what the Prime Minister has done in this matter. The Respect Women at Work report by the Sex Discrimination Commissioner landed on the government, in the government's laps a year ago. Now, it's not simply not good enough for the government to say, oh, well, it's COVID-19, which is the reason that none of this has been dealt with. And now the government is paying the price. We saw it in News Poll yesterday. We're seeing it in the Essential poll today. And I see now, too, that there is fear within coalition ranks, at least as reported by Phil Curry in the Australian Financial Review, that women in the suburbs are being affected by and are responding badly to the way in which the government is managing this whole issue of sexual harassment. It's not simply middle-class, tertiary educated women in the leafy suburbs of Sydney, Melbourne and indeed Perth, but it does appear, if what Phil Curry is reporting is correct, that this is becoming a broader problem for the coalition. And if that is the case, the government may hope that it goes away, but it doesn't seem likely given the fact that there are a number of inquiries going on, which will mean that this comes back to the top of the agenda, the top of the political agenda, again and again as we head towards the next election.
Some real issues too for the Liberal Party at the state level. We saw the wipeout in Western Australia over the weekend, and there in your neck of the woods this morning, the Victorian Liberals' challenge to Michael O'Brien turned out to be a bit of a fizzer. It seems the result in WA might have jolted a few within the party to attention and got them feeling a little bit nervous, but it came to nothing.
Look, I think there's a broader point to be made here. If you look right across the nation, oppositions, whether they be coalition or Labor, are struggling. We saw the situation with a couple of powerful unions in New South Wales getting stuck into Jodie McKay, the Labor leader there. We saw the situation which occurred in Western Australia over the weekend. Boy, oh boy, I used to live in Nedlands. If you'd told me in the days of Charles Court and indeed Richard Court that was going to become a possibility of a Labor seat, never would have believed it. Here in Victoria, we have again a very unstable situation. An opposition leader, Michael O'Brien, who has not cut through in recent months, and despite the lockdown and the missteps in terms of the quarantine hotels earlier last year, now there is clear instability here. Now this misbegotten challenge today does not mean necessarily that is the end of it. Matthew Guy, previous opposition leader, did not challenge, but if you add his half-dozen rusted-on supporters to the 9 that, what was his name, Brad Battin managed to achieve, well, you're getting close to a tipping point. I don't think this is the end of the matter in Victoria. There is deep dissatisfaction within the ranks of the Victorian Liberal Party about the performance of Michael O'Brien, and I suspect we may see another challenge at some time, not necessarily in the immediate future, but the risk for Mr O'Brien remains there, as it does for oppositions around the country, and indeed in relation to the federal opposition, had it not been for the mishandling of the sexual harassment claims and concerns, I suspect we'd be hearing some similar things about Anthony Albanese's leadership as well.